continuing in Jeremiah chapter 2. And Jeremiah is letting the children of Israel, let them have it. Yeah. Letting them have it about their idolatry, their iniquity. And we kind of finished, we kind of started verse 23 last week. We kind of started on the point, how canst thou say, I am not polluted? Okay? Again, this is the whole reason why Israel is going to go into 70-year captivity is their idolatry. They're worshiping other gods and not trusting in the one God. Okay? How canst thou say I'm not polluted? We talked about this last week. I have not gone after Balaam. Okay, and then that's kind of that's as far as we got there on verse 23 last week. And then we come to see thy way in the valley. Okay, this is a reference, if you will, to the valley of Hinnom, the valley of Hinnom, and from the time of Ahaz. The valley of Hinnom had been the seat of worship of Moloch. Okay? We've got Baal, we've got Moloch, you name it, whatever gods other gods they're worshiping. But this was a seat of worship of Moloch, and more than once, Jeremiah here, he doesn't confuse them, but he relates Moloch and Baal together. Lump them all together, and take your pick who you want to worship, and so this is and this way that it says here. 23. See thy way. See your doings. What you're doing. The word way comes out as doings or activities. What are you doing? What are your activities over there in the valley? You're worshiping Moloch. Let's see. I think Moloch was one of the ones that demanded a human sacrifice. Throw your babies in the fire. I think that's the one. Yeah. Nice guy. All these wonderful gods, they have wonderful demands. Go jump in a volcano, throw a virgin or somebody in a volcano, throw them in the fire. The Mayans were really good at their stuff. You name it, they're gods. Well, I guess you could say it was a good way to reduce the surplus population of the earth, or to eliminate the reduce the surplus population. That's one thing that Ebenezer Scrooge said. Oh. Okay, and eliminate the carbon-based units infesting the planet Earth. Now, if any of you are Star Trek fans, V'ger said that, yeah. Okay, but and of course today, what do we have today? Sacrifice your babies through abortion. Same thing. Okay, so so see thy way in the valley, and know what thou hast done. And thou art a swift dromedary traversing her ways. What? A swift dromedary? Okay. Well, dromedary, camel, right? This is like a wild camel, okay, running around in the wilderness. And here we've got, the nature programs that we get to see. Mating rituals on the nature programs, and the the wild animals coming into heat. And that's the picture here. Thou art a swift dromedary traversing her ways. Okay? And, or in verse 24, a wild ass. Okay? And this is, again, nature's mating rituals. The dogs, every dogs, cats, you name it, coyotes, the elk that we have in the valley, doing their thing, and they get all of these, on all the science programs, they show all of let's see, what's a good one? The turkeys will fan out their feathers, and peacocks will fan out their feathers. Okay, this is the picture here in this part of verse 23 and verse 24. Okay, so get that picture. You're running around wild, looking for a mate, okay? And Israel is flocking to this wild dromedary, or wild ass, swift dromedary, flocking for spiritual adultery, okay? Spiritual fornication, if you will. And like, they're going after these idols, these gods, in that way. So, a wild ass used to the wilderness that snuffeth up the wind at her pleasure. Geez, and this case, it's like a female. Okay, wind brings with it the scent of the male. Yeah, didn't know we were going to talking about. You didn't know we were going to talking about sex this morning, did you? Anyway, but that snuffeth up the wind at her pleasure. Wind brings in that scent in her occasion. Who can turn her away? These gods with all of the wonderful stuff. Oh, look what Baal did for me. Look what Moloch did for me. I sacrificed my baby to Moloch. Look what Moloch did for me. And they flock to these other gods rather than the one true God that got them out of the wilderness and fed them and clothed them and brought them to the land of milk and honey, plus defeated many of their enemies, the enemies that they are now worshiping the gods of. Okay? The one true God defeated their enemies. Okay? And here they're flocking to them rather than trusting in the one true God. Snuffeth up the wind at her pleasure in her occasion. Who can turn her away? All they that seek her will not weary themselves. Okay? They're not going to get tired running after these false gods. In her month they shall find her. They're going to find her. So, yeah, and come down here. Withhold thy foot from being unshod. Okay? God, the true husband, exhorts Israel. The true husband. Remember, we're talking about spiritual adultery here. God, the true husband, exhorts them to not run around barefoot and with a parched throat, thirsting like a shameless adulteress after strangers. Withhold thy foot from being unshod and thy throat from thirst. But thou saidest, there is no hope, no, for I have loved strangers, and after them will I go. I like the strange gods more than, that's what, he's telling Israel, that's what you're saying. I love those strange gods more than I love you, one true God, Jehovah. And well, that's wonderful pictures here. And as the thief is ashamed when he is found, now the thief, a lot of times, even today in our lives, okay, we're ashamed, not that we did something, but we got caught. That's exactly what we're ashamed of, and all of the crime shows on TV and all of that, the same kind of picture arises, that they're not ashamed for what they've done, and they're just embarrassed. Oh, I got caught. Whatever they're doing, they got caught. God is here telling them, hey, you've been caught, guys. You're ashamed. When you're found out, so is the house of Israel ashamed. Their kings, their princes, and their priests, and their prophets. Well, God doesn't leave anybody out here, okay? Because their kings, princes, priests, and their prophets are all leading them astray, except for God's selected true prophets like Jeremiah, like Ezekiel, like Daniel. Okay, there are a remnant of folks, and actually, you could say at this time. Remember, in Ezekiel's life, or Jeremiah's life, I'm getting Ezekiel and Jeremiah, since we just finished Ezekiel, I'm getting them all confused, Anyway, what senility comes in, Jeremiah is now in business, starting his business, at the time of Josiah, the good king's reign, okay? So there are kings, there are princes, there are priests, and there are prophets that do trust God. Jeremiah is one of them. They still trust God. Prophets, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, all those others. The ones included here in the Bible, that are good prophets, good kings, but God is including everybody in there. Not only the whole house of Israel, kings, princes, priests, prophets, saying to a stock, thou art to my father, okay? And to a stone, and apparently the word coming out here, stone, is in Hebrew, I guess it's a feminine word, and this is represented as the mother. Okay? So thou art my father, and thou art my mother. Okay? Again, referring to the idol worshiping, worshiping their gods. Thou hast brought me forth, for they have turned their back unto me. God got them out, but God got them out of Egypt. God is going to get them out. God always has a remnant, but pretty much everybody else, turn your back on God. Turn your back on God today. Okay? We call it backsliding. Okay? But turn your back on God today, and you may have trusted Jesus as your Savior. You may be on your way to heaven, but if you turn your back on God, okay, there will be some chastisement. There may be 70 years of captivity in your future of being a slave. Okay? They have turned their back unto me and not their face, but in the time of their trouble will they arise. They say, arise and save us. Okay. Remember, he's preaching this about 14 years, thereabouts. before Nebuchadnezzar moves in and conquers Jerusalem and all of that, and they go totally into the captivity. Okay? Arise that now all of a sudden, okay, we're in trouble now. Now we're slaves. Even the princes and the kings and their priests and their prophets, they're slaves now. Even Daniel. Okay. Now Ezekiel. Remember, Ezekiel was preaching from the Babylonian Empire. He was inside the Babylonian Empire, up by the Chebar River, about there in a if you will, a settlement of Jewish slaves up there, and so he's a slave also. Okay. Jeremiah will be a slave also. Nobody's going to get out of it, even though God has work for them to do during this time. Okay. But yeah, so they're in trouble now. And what, 400 years in Egypt, and they had to get Moses, and Moses was accusing them. Actually, Moses kind of said, have you not heard the cry of your people in slavery? Well, yes, he has. God hears, the cries of his people in slavery, and that's what's gonna happen here. They're gonna be in slavery again, and we've been worshiping Moloch and Baal and Astaroth. I mentioned Astaroth last week, the moldy female goddess who we name Easter after. Yeah, and that moldy female goddess she was a goddess of fertility and stuff like that. She didn't do anything to save Israel. So now, Baal's not doing anything. Buddha's not doing anything for them. Confucius is not doing anything for them. Whoever, they're now we turn to God. Now, you haven't heard our cries, God. What's up with you? You aren't listening to us, God. Yes, he is. Okay? When we get in trouble and we go through a trial, which probably we brought on ourselves when we go through these trials. That's exactly what Israel did. They brought it on themselves. Okay? When that happens, then gosh, maybe I need to turn to God and pray and seek his face rather than, like Daisy and her Elvis shrine there. That she had at home. Anyway, you're not going to forget that, Daisy. Well, anyway, that's the picture here. But where are thy gods? God asks, where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Where's your little statue that you made, your little graven image that you went and bought at the downtown. You come to Jerusalem to do to go to the temple to make your sacrifice as they were instructed to do, and they do that. Of course, then they go back home to their Moloch or Baal gallery, whatever they've got, and they stop at one of the souvenir shops there in Jerusalem while they're there, and a guy is selling little silver statues or wood statues or gold-plated statues of somebody, some god. Okay, so they go, and the same time that they are supposedly making their sacrifices to the one true God, taking their sacrifice, okay? They're, like I said, stopping at the souvenir shop and buying one of these little statues to take home, okay? And now, where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Let them arise. You know? Let that little brass Buddha that you've got there as a doorstop in your front room, let him come up and save you. Let them arise, if they can save thee at the time of thy trouble. For according to the number of thy cities are thy gods, O Judah. Okay? Again, you know, who's going to rescue here? If your house is on fire, you've heard this one before. Who's going to rescue who? Is that little brass Buddha going to rescue you, or are you going to have to run in and grab him and save him? You know, but you know, brass Buddhas. Hey, you know, you can recycle brass. You get quite a bit of money for recycled brass, right? Yeah. And so, that's very, yeah. And according to the number of thy cities are thy gods. Oh, again, we're, you know, Egypt, Babylon, Romans, you name it, Greece, you know, so many gods, Egypt, so many gods, and they're saying, God is saying, how many cities are there in Judah? How many towns are in Judah? Well, however many towns there are in Judah, cities, whatever, villages in Judah, that's how many gods you have that you're going to have to try and rescue when you get in trouble, and they're not going to do anything for you.